Welcome back to Talking Sports with Brandon. This is Week 11 preview video for the NFL. Going to go over our 5 picks for this week, maybe touch on some other storylines. We could actually start with the Thursday night game. So, Titans-Packers in Green Bay. Titans win 27-17. The Packers, you think they get the win over Dallas last week. You think maybe they can change their season around. They were 4-6 going into this game. Wasn't the case. Again, I think that Dallas win was a lucky win. I don't think that was really indicative of them turning their season around and potentially, obviously they couldn't win that division, but maybe get a final wild card spot. And this game kind of proved it that they're really just not that good of a team. The defense can be solid at times, but that's not really the case most times. Offensively, they just can't throw the ball. Christian Watson, he had 3 touchdowns last game. He had 2 in this one. So he's looked better, and they've actually looked a little bit better through the air, but it's still nothing explosive. It's still nothing you're really concerned about as a defense. Tennessee is one of the worst secondaries in the league, and they really, even though Rodgers 227, the fact that he kind of he maxes out at 230, 240 just proves that their offense and their air attack just isn't as good as it's been in the past. At 220, 5 years ago, even just the last 2 years, 227 through the air for Rodgers, that's did they run the ball for 200 yards? Were they just killing the team? That's usually what you would think. But if you look at his box scores and his stats from this year, you see 227 and it's well, they're losing most of the game. So, the running game in this one wasn't that good for Green Bay. It was only 56 yards, not even 3 yards a carry. So it's just they just don't have the weapons offensively, and they don't have the explosiveness to just kind of put points on you. And, they scored 31 last week. I think that was their season high. They just can't really score points. They scored 17 in this one. I think they're averaging about 17 points a game so far this season. For people who thought maybe they could turn it around, I didn't think it. Obviously, if they won this game, hey, they're 5-6. Maybe you definitely have a chance. You're almost 500. You definitely, besides the Vikings, you have a weaker division. But it's they're definitely. I think they'll win maybe a couple more games this season. I think maybe 6. I think 7's kind of stretching it. I think they're probably going to end up at 6-11. That's just the team that they are, and it's definitely. The year that a lot of people kind of expected them to still be a really good team. I didn't know if I expected them to be, a solid top of the NFC team. It was a weaker NFC, but I just thought the departures, the kind of the weird things that were going on with that team, with Rodgers especially, just didn't bode well for this season. And we clearly see that when you lose Devontae Adams, and you also lose MVS, which I thought was a big loss for them as well, which is probably more under the radar. You just don't have the receiving weapons that you have, and the offensive line's a little bit beat up, and the defense, again, it's at times it could be okay, but it's not good enough to where you can rely on that defense to make stops, get turnovers, make plays for you that can really set up your offense. So they're 4-7. Tennessee's 7-3. They're still doing it. They're somehow still getting it done. I don't think they're the most talented team. You have to give the credit to Vrabel. He's a great coach because they were the 1 seed last year. They're 7-3 this year. They're probably going to end up with at least 11 wins, especially in that division where they've already beaten the Colts twice. So they're gonna be one of the top teams in the AFC. Now, are you afraid of them? Are you more afraid? You're definitely more afraid of Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore. Definitely those teams. If Cincinnati gets everyone healthy again, the way that they were looking before Chase got injured, that could have been maybe a team that could at least be on the same level as Tennessee in terms of being, going to the game with them, how much you would want to play that team. But they just keep getting it done. You got to give them credit for just the overall collective unit that they have for that team. Tannehill was really good. He threw for 333, 22 out of 27 in this game. So he was really good, and that's a good sign because, Henry was solid but not great, only 3 yards a carry, but he did have a touchdown. He actually threw a touchdown as well. But if Tannehill can look like that, especially with the injuries that he's had, and again, you're not asking him to throw for 300 yards a game. That's not his role in this offense, but if he can show that he can do that, and really for him, it's the mistakes, it's the turnovers. That's the big thing for him. If he could stay away from that, and Henry does get hot, and when the playoffs start, like really get hot 150, 200, like he's shown he can do in the past, it can, because the defense is real. The secondary's not, but that front seven, especially that front four, when they're healthy, they can get after the quarterback. And as we saw against the Bengals last year, what was it, 8 sacks, 9 sacks in that game? If it wasn't for a Tannehill interception, I mean, he had like 3 or 4 interceptions in that game, but a late one that really sealed the deal. They're probably winning that game, and they probably should have won that game. So encouraging stuff from Tennessee. Like I said, they're 7-3. Green Bay is 4-7. But moving on to this week. So first game that I'm picking for this week is the Panthers at the Ravens. This one's a big line. It's Ravens -13, but Ravens coming off a bye. I think Andrews is supposed to play in this game. I think they're kind of they're getting guys back. They're looking a little bit healthier. Panthers, I don't feel that good about them. Now the win against Atlanta last Thursday night. You can say what you want. It's a win, but come on, it's Atlanta. The weather was also terrible in that game. That was like in the outskirts of the hurricane. So there's a lot of running the football, which they do want to do. They do want to run the ball, which is going to be a task for Baltimore to stop. I think that kind of plays into their hands, though, because they're better against the run than they are against the pass. So that helps that, Carolina's not going to want to throw the ball down the field and kind of beat you over the top. So definitely look for Roquan Smith to make a lot of plays in this game. But I think it's Baltimore's offense. I think them at home as well, that's a huge factor. They always play better at home. And, I think that they're going to jump out to a big lead. I think they're kind of going to put some touchdowns on the board. I think they'll probably score 30 plus. And personally, I don't see Carolina really getting over 20 in this game. Now, maybe a late touchdown could, kind of cover this, the 13 spread, which would obviously, hurt my chances of winning, because I think that that's definitely possible. It's the game's over. They're up 20. They're up 20 points, and or even like 19, I guess. So I would lose. They get a late touchdown, and then the game's a 12-point game in the end. But I don't think it's going to be like that. I think Baltimore will kind of put their foot down early. I think that's a big thing. I think Lamar is going to look really good early. Again, he hasn't had Andrews in a little bit. He's going to definitely target him and go after him. I think the run game's going to work for them as well. So it's a big spread. I've done it a couple times this season. It's worked. I think it worked with Buffalo against Pittsburgh, and I think it didn't work with someone else. I can't remember who it was. It was only a couple weeks ago, but I'm hoping it will work again. And yeah, that's my first one. So Baltimore -13. Eagles Colts second game. I have Eagles -7. Now Eagles, they come off the bad loss last week against Washington. It was expected that they'd lose at least one game this season. I mean, I pegged them at 14-3 for the end of the season. I think that's probably where they will end up. But Washington was not the game that you expected them to lose, especially at home Monday night. Washington, they play competitive, they play tough, but that, as long as you're not making mistakes and killing yourself, in terms of Philadelphia against Washington, you're not going to lose that game. And that's what happened. Philadelphia made mistakes, they had turnovers, and they let Washington stay in the game and obviously take a lead. And they just kept making enough plays, Washington, to the point where it was 0 seconds on the clock and they had to win. So, but for Philadelphia, playing the Colts had obviously a big win last week against the Raiders. First game for Jeff Saturday. I think that they'll look, and Matt Ryan's going to start again, so I think that helps. I think the veteran quarterback that he is does help that team. Now, again, if he doesn't turn the ball over, they're a better football team. If Taylor can run the ball, is he going to go for I think he went for 130 last game, 140. He can definitely do that, but is he going to against this defense? I would be hesitant to say that. One, because of the defense that they have, but then two, you have to see how the game plays out. Philadelphia, their offense is still lethal. They can still go down the field and score, even against a good Colts defense. But if they're down early, and not even early, but just down for most of the game, they're going to want to stick with the run, yeah. But if it's not there, or if you really just need to pass the ball, because that you got to get yards, you got to get touchdowns, they're going to abandon that run, and then that's where they're vulnerable. They don't have the best receivers. Again, Matt Ryan can make mistakes. If he holds the ball for too long in the pocket, you can definitely strip him. That was a big problem. Fumbles, I think he had 8 or 9 fumbles this season, along with like 8 interceptions. So that's where they make mistakes, and that's where you capitalize on their mistakes if you're Philadelphia's defense. So again, it's only 7 points. I'm confident they're going to win this game, and 7 points, a touchdown. I think they can beat Indianapolis by a touchdown. I don't think that's a problem for them. It's just as long as they're not having turnovers themselves, there's no problem. I think they got to go back to running the ball though. That's something that against Washington they just didn't do, which was surprising because I think that Philadelphia likes to think of themselves as a passing team, and they're not. Their passing comes because of the rushing attack that they have. They could run the ball easily for 150, 200 yards a game, easily, no doubt. It was Sanders and with Hurts as obviously being the rushing quarterback that he is. No doubt they could run for 150 to 200 every single game, no matter the defense, no matter what it is. I think that they want to do passing more. It just seems like, they'll have dropbacks, they'll go shotgun. There'll be drives where they just go three straight passes. I don't think that works. I think that the passes work off because of the run, whether it's play action or they have to bring a guy down in the box, where then they go over the top. You may get a one-on-one situation with A.J. Brown for 25 yards. You may get Devonta Smith in the flat. Or coming across the middle, going one-on-one, and you can lead him, and he can get you like 30 yards. I think that's where their passing comes into play, and it's all set up because of the run. And I think they just get a little too caught up in trying to go for the big plays with the passing. I think it's a problem, and it may come back to haunt them. For the regular season, it's not the biggest deal because they're still a really talented team, but for the playoffs, that may come down to haunt them because if they get stuck in that passing phase and they kind of put themselves behind, you can go 3 and out very easily. You're stopping the clock if it's a late game situation. You're not getting yards. You can't get the defense on its heels. You're a little bit more predictable. So maybe in the playoffs they'll come back, but we'll see if it changes for this game. I'm assuming it will. I think they'll go heavy run for this game. 7 points. I think they should be able to cover that. So that's my second game. Third game. The team that they lost to last week, Washington, against the Texans. I have Washington -3. I like what I saw. I like what I've seen with Heinicke at quarterback. I said it, that he should be the starting quarterback of this team. Wentz possibly could have played this game, but they announced that Heinicke was going to start. I don't really see that changing. He's not going to go for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and look amazing like that, but he's going to make the plays necessary to win. He's going to do everything that you ask him to do. He may have a turnover here and there that looks a little ugly, but at the same time, he just seems to make plays happen, and I think that's what you want. You want your quarterback who is not that talented on a team that's not that talented, just to make the plays and make random plays that work out for 15, 20 yards, and he just seems to have a knack and an ability to do that. So I like the start. I like that they went with him. I like the confidence. It seems like the team, they support him and they go to him. And I think that's very important for a team like this that, like I said, isn't the most talented in the world, that they really do support their quarterback and they want to play for him. That's what you want. And I think Ron Rivera knows that, and that's why he went with Heinicke as soon as that Monday night game was over, because he could see that his team, just went to him and not they. If Wentz was back in there, maybe they would win this game, maybe they wouldn't. But it's just there's a growing sensation over Heinicke, and I think it's working perfectly for this locker room. Them against the Texans. Texans are 1-7-1. They've been competitive in a lot of games, but they want to run the ball. That's what they do. Dameon Pierce has been great so far this season, but the defense isn't amazing. They're not going to make a lot of plays against you. And the passing attack for them isn't great. I mean, they really only have Brandon Cooks on the outside, who's, obviously he said he didn't want to be traded, but then he did want to be traded, and he obviously didn't get traded. He got stripped of his captaincy, I think, for last week's game. So weird things going on there. I'm not sure exactly what the exact case is, but definitely a little weird. But at the same time, they're not a good team. So again, Washington, no mistakes, no turnovers. The good thing for them is that their front four is really good, and especially against the run. So if the run's not working for Houston, there's no doubt Washington will cover this by 3 points. That seems very easy to me. So that's my third game. Fourth game, Bengals, Steelers, -3.5 for Cincinnati is what I'm taking. Ja'Marr Chase possibly could have played this game. He didn't, so he'll most likely return for next week's game. That's why they didn't put him on IR, because then I think then he would have guaranteed miss this game, and I think he would have guaranteed miss next game as well. So that's why they didn't do that. It makes sense because he's going to be able to return a week earlier than expected if he was on IR. But this game, Bengals, the loss that they had against the Browns, that was an ugly loss. But then they come back, they destroy the Panthers. That was kind of a get back game. They're coming off a bye week. I think that helps. And going against the Steelers here, the Steelers aren't that good of a team. I seem to always be picking against them. They did beat the Saints last week, but I don't think the Saints are that good of a team as well. Dalton being the quarterback there, it's an ugly situation for them in terms of this season and just kind of what their future looks like. But the Saints are not a good team this year. I think a lot of people had high expectations for them, at least like competing for that division, making a wild card spot at the minimum, but maybe even winning that division over Tampa Bay. And it definitely was possible because Tampa is not that good of a football team. But yeah, New Orleans is 3-7. So it was a good win for Pittsburgh to get that, but I think it's a little bit more indicative of how bad New Orleans really is, and I just don't think people want to accept the fact that they're just not that good of a football team. I think people still see the players on their team, they still think, oh, it's the Saints, but it's kind of all false hope there. So they're really not that good of a football team. But Bengals here, -3.5. The last game they played, Mixon had a great game. We'll see if that happens again. It won't be that good of a game, but I think that they should use him more in the offense. It just seems that this year, whether it's him, the offensive line, the playmaking, or the play calling, I should say, whatever it is, it's just not on the same page. And maybe last week was a kickstart to what we'll see for the end of the season, where, he was, I think he had 1,200 yards rushing last year. Like, he's not even going to come close to that. He's only at 585 so far this season. Like, I think he needs to get the ball more, whether it's through the air or on the ground. But I think that's a huge factor for why they were able to put up 42 last week, and why I think for the rest of the season they would be better off. Even with Jamar back and with all, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, obviously, I think that they really got to establish the run, because the pass will always come off the run no matter what. No matter what quarterback you have, no matter what receivers you have, the pass will always guaranteed come off the run if you could run the ball against someone. So, Steelers have TJ Watt back. That's huge for them, because the last time these teams played in week 1, Watt was the difference maker. He won the game for the Steelers, basically, and to why that game went into OT and the Steelers were able to win it. It was because of TJ Watt. So it will be a replica of that, possibly, but we'll see. And I think it starts at running the ball with Mixon. So that's my fourth game, Bengals -3.5. And then fifth and final game is Monday night, Niners-Cardinals in Mexico, actually. But it's -8.5. This is 2 weeks in a row I'm picking the Niners. Last week it lost by 1 point. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. But it doesn't look like Kyler Murray's going to play this game. Colt McCoy, I mean, it looks like he's going to play, but at the same time, he might not play. So who knows? I think he will. But let's say they don't play, then it's the third string guy. It could be some random guy. Then it's a great line to have, because it may even go up a little bit more if it is announced that both of them aren't playing. But even still, even if Colt McCoy's playing, the Niners should be able to get after him defensively. I don't see Colt McCoy really dicing up a defense. Now he can move. He's a little bit mobile and he kind of make plays off the run. But he's a career backup for a reason. And I think that they should be able to exploit that. Arizona's got a lot of problems anyways. They did beat the Rams last week, but again, kind of like the Steelers situation, I think it just shows how bad the Rams are. And now with them without Cooper Kupp, I know he's on IR, but basically the rest of the season, I think by the time he comes back, I don't even know if they'll maybe win one game in that stretch. So they may just hold him out for the rest of the season. We'll see. But yeah, I think that was kind of just showing how bad Los Angeles is. And Stafford wasn't playing, to be fair. Murray wasn't playing. But this game, though, San Francisco, tough physical game against LA last week. They probably should have won by more. The fact that they didn't against a really beat-up Chargers team is a little concerning. But I think McCaffrey has a really good game in this one. And they're able just to put points up. Again, Debo's not really been that effective so far this season. He had the one game against the Rams where he had a really good game. I think he had one, maybe two more games where he was good, but he really hasn't been dynamic so far this season. I mean, Ayuk's their leading receiver. So I think you got to get him more involved in the offense. I think Shanahan knows that, and I think he wants to. Even George Kittle had some words for the press this week about, saying he'd love to get more than 2 targets a game, which I think is fair. I mean, you have a all-pro tight end who they barely throw the ball to. it's just like weird. I know he's a great run blocker, and obviously Shanahan's offense is running the ball, especially now with McCaffrey, but with Mitchell, all the guys they've had in the past, Mostert, Wilson, Mitchell, McCaffrey, just every single running back they've ever had, they want to run the ball. And they're always very effective at doing it because he's great at run blocking formations and schemes and knows how to get gaps open and holes for his running backs to hit. But you got to use George Kittle in the passing game. It's like him, Ayuk, and Debo and Christian McCaffrey. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be throwing the ball. Even it doesn't have to be 20 yards down the field, but get all these guys. And I remember them showing the stat last Sunday night of McCaffrey, specifically McCaffrey, Kittle, and Debo. Them yards after contact is exactly what they want. That's exactly what they're the best at, yards after contact. Like, that's what they want. Or get the ball in their hands and they're going to make plays. Yards after catch. They're great at that. Like, you just got to get them the ball in space or even just the ball and let them make plays. If you remember that Rams game where Debo had the long touchdown, it wasn't like it's kind of like a broken play, just kind of got the ball to him, and he just made a couple guys miss, ran across the field, and then scored a touchdown. It was a 57-yard, 60-yard touchdown. Like that's what he does. That's what he does. That's what Kittle does. They don't really use him in the red zone. Kittle, McCaffrey, obviously him being the running back, he's going to get the ball the most, but he's really got to hammer getting those guys the ball because their offense is good. But it could be way more explosive, way more dynamic if you get those guys the ball in space. And he knows how to get guys in space and get guys open, so it shouldn't be a problem. I think that this would be a good test for that as to against a defense that has its moments and can definitely make plays, but isn't the best defense in the world, and you can definitely exploit. So I would not be surprised if Debo has a really good game or Kittle has a really good game in this one. I think Jimmy G's been really solid so far. There's a lot of critics about him, a lot of noise about he's really not that good. He doesn't make all the plays, and definitely there's games where he doesn't really do anything, but he kind of makes the throws he has to. The running game kind of takes care of itself. The defense makes plays on the other side of the ball. But I think he's a solid quarterback. I think that any team would like to have him, except for the ones that have franchise quarterbacks. If you're one of those middling teams that has a really good roster, but you don't have the quarterback, you want Jimmy G as your quarterback because his winning percentage is great. He knows how to win games. He's been in big games before. So I think he's been really good so far this season for what's happened. I mean, he didn't even think he was going to be on the Niners this season, and now he's starting and could potentially lead them to a division title and even a couple more playoff wins. So that's my fifth game. Just to recap it, though, Panthers, Ravens, -13 Baltimore, Eagles, Colts, -7 Philadelphia, Commanders, Texans, -3 Washington, Bengals, Steelers, -3.5 Cincinnati, and then Niners, Cardinals, -8.5 49ers. So those are the 5 picks. I'll say my overall record again. We went 2-3 last week, so it's 22, 25, and 3. Looking to be over 500, at least 500, but looking to get over it. Hopefully it starts this week. Just some other games maybe to mention. The Sunday night game, Chiefs, Chargers. That could be a big game. If Chargers could steal that one, the Chiefs would be 7-3, Chargers 6-4. They'd split the season series. So that could get interesting. It's going to be tough, though. We'll see if Keenan Allen and Mike Williams even play in this game. They both are trending to playing, but who knows? It looked like Keenan Allen was going to play last week. He didn't, so who knows? But we'll know more. That's a Sunday night game, obviously, so we'll know at probably 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock who's playing in that game officially. We'll probably know Saturday night when, if they actually are going to play, but I would expect them to play. At least one of them will. I think both of them will, though. And the Chiefs, no McCole Hardman. He's on IR. Juju's not playing this game, so look for Kadarius Toney to play a big role in this offense. Kelsey's probably going to have another monster game, so definitely look out for that. It's a good game. And again, if Chargers win, that division gets a little bit more interesting and exciting. I still think Chiefs would win it, but being one game back then, with all that the Chargers have gone through, it's pretty impressive. Other games, Browns, Bills, obviously that game got moved from Buffalo to Detroit. I think it'll actually still be a good game. The Browns, they're just waiting for Watson to get back, and obviously it's very, very soon. It's actually going to be this. I think this is the last game with Brissett. I think they do go. Yeah, this is the last game with Brissett. I don't think the Browns, they're on bye next week, and then they play the Texans, where Watson is eligible to play, and he will play that game. So I don't think Brissett's not done a terrible job. He's definitely not done good. The fact that they're 3-6, their record could be way better than 3-6. For sure, 4-5, potentially 5-4. Think about the Jets game, a couple other games that were winnable, and they just blew it, whether it was him or just the team itself. So 3-6 is definitely not what you were expecting with the way that they've played, with the way their schedule kind of worked out. You would at least think 4-5. But it's, they really need to win this game against the Bills if they want to have a chance at the playoffs. If you lose this, you're 3-7. Even with Watson, I mean, you could win out, go 10-7. It's possible, but I don't think they'd win out. So, it's definitely a tough. Now, look, you have Watson for the rest of the contract. That's what you really were banking for with him being suspended for 12 games. You really weren't expecting to make huge noise this year, but you at least probably thought you were going to make the playoffs. Especially Brissett's not a bad backup. You still have a good team, but obviously it just wasn't the case. But yeah, that game being in Detroit now, it bodes well because they could, you're in a dome, you can do the stuff that you normally are going to do. It would have been fun to see them play in the snow, and the last time the Bills played in the snow like that, I was against the Colts, and it's low scoring. You're running the ball. The passes that you are doing are just kind of short routes because you can't throw the ball deep. So it would have been interesting to see what the game plan was. How would you use Stephon Diggs in this game? It would have been interesting, but obviously in a dome, controlled environment, it's going to be a normal football game. Cowboys-Vikings is a great game this week. That's in the 4:25 window. Cowboys, obviously. The Cowboys are favored in this game. Maybe a little bit surprising considering the Vikings are 8-1. Vikings are at home, coming off a huge road win against Buffalo. Cowboys obviously just lost on the road to Green Bay, so a little interesting that they are favored. I kind of think that they are somewhat even in terms of teams, so definitely surprising. They're favored by 1.5, but that's going to be a good game as well. Jets-Patriots, I think, is going to be a really good game. We'll see if the Jets can overcome the Patriots. That's always the biggest test for them is the Patriots. And even though the Pats are 5-4 and they obviously aren't as good as they've been in the past, they always just seem to own the Jets. They already beat the Jets this year, 22-17. Pats are coming off a bye. Belichick's always good coming off a bye. Jets are coming off a bye as well, but this will be a really good game in that 1 o'clock window where you could really see them. And Jets are 6-3. If they win this, they're 7-3. They kind of get over that hump of the Patriots and Belichick as well. So that's kind of more of like a psychological game too, to add on to just the physical part of it, getting over him. So yeah, that will be a really good game as well. It should be a good week in the NFL for this week. And I think week 12, I believe, is the last week of buys. I think maybe in week 13, actually. I think the Cardinals are on bye in week 13, but week 13 is definitely the last week for buys. So, so buys are kind of coming to an end. Most teams are now playing full schedules. So we'll see what happens in the stretch run to the playoffs. We're just about there. We're still maybe 2-3 weeks away from getting to that real stretch run where you have a couple games left, got to win them. Can't lose them, so we're getting to that point, the really exciting point of the season. But yeah, those are the picks. So we talked about the other games for this week. Check out the Cowboys video on this channel if you didn't get a chance to see it. It was a couple days ago from when I'm posting this. It was about the Packers game, and definitely make sure to check out next week's videos, which will be an intro to the Thanksgiving games. Those will be out of those 3 games, those are 3 out of the 5 picks. So it's definitely. We definitely need a good week this week because I'm guaranteed picking those 3 games. I mean, obviously I can go 3-0, but at the same time, they may not be games I really do want to touch. But I'm gonna do it. It's Thanksgiving. I've done it the last 2 years, so definitely make sure to check out that video, the Cowboys video for next week as well. And at this same time next week, you'll see the preview video for week 12. Gonna be a really good week. Check out the other videos on this channel, and I thank you for watching.